asked a few times recently how I set up my rigs in terms of the Pellet Waggler and the pellet feeder. Really simple rigs to set up. I'm going to take you through those today. The tackle that's used, bits of the kit that you may need to buy, and actually how we then go through and set those up. How I tie, for example, the loop in the end of the line, we can then do a loop-to-loop on some of the hook lengths that I'll be using. I'll show you that as well. Now let me take you through the kit that you're going to need. Now you need Pellet Waggler floats, you're going to need adapters, and you're going to need hook lengths. Now there are multiple types by multiple companies. I've got a couple here that I use. There's some very specific ones that I prefer to use if I've got them, but let me show you some of those examples, and then I'll take you through the Waggler adapters as well. And there's a couple of different types of those again that I use, and I'll show you how to connect those onto the line as well. So you'll see here there are different. I've got different types of Pellet Waggler floats. Now there's the midi splashions, which are got nothing inside them. There's what's called Trickham floats. These ones actually have ball bearings inside that when they land on the water mimic pellets hitting the water. One of my favourite ones, which is the Drennan XL 10 gram. It's really good because it's quite heavy and can cast quite a good distance but accurately. Then you've got the Guru ones, so these are made out of balsa, and again all of these floats are pre-weighted. Now my favourite one are these midi popper floats. Now actually these ones, the reason they're called a popper is the dive disc on the bottom of them is slightly curved, so when they hit the water they mimic a pellet hitting the water, hopefully so you can see there. And actually I find that I get greater takes on those. Now as I mentioned, the dive discs, all of these floats, they either come attached or you do need to attach them on yourself. Come with either a little plastic or built-in anti-dive disc. Now what this does is when the float actually hits the water, the float will actually not dive as deep, and because of the way the method of pellet waggler fishing, you're actually trying to keep that float as soon as it hits the water up and visible so that you can see those takes on the drop. Now the Guru ones are built in, and they're not as prominent as the other ones, but actually do seem to work relatively well. But as mentioned, the poppers are my favourite, just because of the results that I get on those. As I already mentioned, they are pre-weighted as well. Now the benefit of the pre-weighting is you don't need any other kit apart from the float, Waggler adapter, hook length. That will then give you, within minutes, the ability to go out and catch some fish. So now what I'll do is I'll tell you through how I attach those onto the line, and how I tie a loop in the end of the line, and how I attach the hook length onto the end of that. Also, as I mentioned, the adapters that you need to attach the floats to the line, there's a couple of different types of those. You've got here these ones, which are little rubber end caps with a bar in the middle, and a swivel and connector attached to those. Now they come in two different types, either a plastic bar or a metal bar. Personally, I've got no preferences, whichever ones I can get a hold of. The other ones are these Pellet Waggler connection beads, and they come in many different sizes and types and makes, relatively cheap on some of the bulk buy websites and apps. Now with those you do need some line stops. My preference is the Guru tight line stops, either medium or large, and I find that those hold that in place brilliantly. Now the reason you want to use these types of connectors is actually it helps you move the float up and down the line to get the different depths that you may be searching for, to find where those fish are, maybe starting 6 feet, 8 feet deep, and then moving anything up to 4 inches. Now each of these different types of connection method actually allow you to do that really simply without having to take all your kit off the line and reset that, and actually you can go up and down the line as much as you want. Now let me show you how I'm going to connect those to the line. Now the connector that I'm going to demonstrate to you is the one with the metal bar in the middle, just so I think it's a bit more visible on the camera there. The first thing is just to take it apart. You'll find that you get the metal bar, takes a little bit of coaxing, so you end up with two rubber end caps, the metal centre pin, and then the swivel and connector in there as well. Now the first thing you want to do is take your line and feed it through the thinnest end of one of the rubber stops. The key thing here actually, and a lot of people do miss this, and I have been asked why I do it, is to feed the line through the eye of the swivel. Now the plain reason for that is if you do get snapped off or snagged, or actually these rubber end caps the line does rip out of them every now and again. What will happen, of course, that rubber end cap come off, potentially the metal bar will fall out, but because you've connected the swivel to your line, you'll actually end up keeping your Waggler floats. As I mentioned, some of them are relatively expensive, so you want to keep those. The next thing is to feed the line through the thicker end of the second end cap, and what you'll then end up with is something that looks relatively light, so with everything kind of free flowing, and the end caps are moving, the swivel's moving. Now this is where the bar comes in. Slide the bar into the fat end of one of the first end caps, making sure then to actually feed the bar through the swivel eye as well to help lock that in place. And then take the last end cap and push the bar into that as well. Now you've got your connector, your bar, your swivel, everything on the line, relatively tight. And the more you squeeze those end caps down towards each other, the tighter it is. What I'll find is once I find out what the depth of the fish is, I'll make that as tight as possible so I don't get any movement. But actually, if I do want to move the float up and down the line, just loosen it off a bit, and you can then just pull or reduce or pull it the other way, and actually get that different depth that you're looking for. So that's actually relatively it in terms of the connector. Now what I'll do at this stage is tie the loop into the end of my line. Now the way that I do this is I actually double over the line, and again I'm sure there are many ways to do this, and some people probably criticise me, but this is what I find to be the easiest and most reliable way of getting a loop in my line for that loop-to-loop connection on some of the hook links we're going to use. So doubled over the line, and I've got my loop. Now I need to make sure that loop stays there and a kind of a knot to put that in place. So what I do is I wrap it around my fingers, the doubled up line, till I get another loop here, and then I just give myself enough, wrap around the fingers, and just roll the loop, doubled up loop, around the top of the big loop that I've got, 4 or 5 or 6 times depending on how secure you want to make it. Give it a bit of a wet, and then pull. And what you're doing, making sure to hold the loose tag end pull it all tight. Now what I found, a couple of things that's great about this knot, I'm sure there's a proper name for it as well, I have no idea what it is one, it self-tightens. The more fish you play and the more fish you get on, actually this knot will tighten down and become very strong. Secondly, I normally use 8 pound Daiwa sensor line. Now the reason I found this is I found it really reliable with the Guru QM1 bait banded hook lengths. So I use the size 12 hooks. What I found with this line and with this knot is those hook lengths will fail before the line fails. So if I do get snagged up, or if a fish pulls me off, or I hit the clip and it snaps me off, actually I'm ready to go relatively quickly, that I can just put a new hook length on and away I go. I don't have to reset my whole line, my whole rig. So this knot is really reliable. Now once you've done that loop and put the loop in the line, you just need to trim off the tag ends with a pair of scissors or give it a bite. And what you've then got is your connector and your loop, which is great. And now I'll show you how to connect that correctly to the Guru hook length, as I mentioned earlier. So as I mentioned earlier, I use the Guru QM1 bait band rigs. Now I get the 4-inch versions because that gives me flexibility. Earlier when I was showing you that you can move your float up and down the line, I can go anything from 6 to 8 feet, actually to 4 inches, which is really good when you get those fish feeding up on the top. Now I've put all mine on the Guru spools in the rig case, but actually you can use them straight out of the packet. As mentioned, now what I'll do is I'll show you how to connect those to the loop in the line that we've just made. I'm going to just take one of the hook lengths off the spool. Take the loop that we've made in our line. Now you may wonder which way round you kind of feed the loops into each other. Now the way that I found works best is if I find the loop that's in the line that we made earlier, and I feed that into the end of the guru hook length, to make it as small as possible so that it actually fits. And what you've then got is the guru hook length attached to the line, but obviously it'll fall off. All you do is you feed the hook and the bait band back through the big loop that you've made in your line, and you pull it tight. Now you'll see here, hopefully, as I pull tighter, it becomes kind of a really tiny knot, and actually it's very neat and tidy. What you're looking for is that neat and tidiness within the join. Anything other than that could, in theory, make your line weaker, or could make the join weaker, which could then snap off a lot sooner. So now what we've got is the is the hook length here, joined onto our line, our pellet adapter, and we're ready to go. Now the last thing we need to do is to connect the float to the adapter. And the reason I do it at the end, rather than a bit of weight on the line, it just gives me a lot easier control of the line and of everything joining together. Now, on the end of the Waggler adapter, you've got a clip. On the bottom of your float, you've got a little ring, a little eye. Undo the clip by squeezing it, and then just feed the loose end of the clip into the bottom of the eye. Clip it all back together, and there you're ready to fish. As I mentioned, make sure that when you first start off that actually your rubber ends are squeezed relatively tight together so that nothing comes apart. Again, now this is where you want to start searching out the depth and finding those fish. So that's how I use the Pellet Waggler and set it all up. Hope that works for you. What I would say is go out, have a look. Look at all the other videos on YouTube, on Twitter, on Instagram, and find what works for you. As I mentioned, some of these knots, people may say that's not the right thing to do, but actually it works for me, and I find them very, very reliable. So thanks for watching.